because I don't know that you see 8, 10 years down the road how this
Yeah.
certification can affect people and how it can really just open a door. And it's just one door. And even if it's just open a crack and you can get your foot in, then that leads to the next door and the next door. And so that's why I was so excited to, reach out to you and
Man, I'm
support
glad
you
you
out
sent that
here.
email.
And
I'm so glad you sent that email because the thing is that it's one of those things where people see me and I'm someplace else, right? Okay. Um, but I also want them to see people like you because you were in the same place where they were at. And it
oh
wasn't
yeah,
even a pandemic at that point, right? We're talking about
I
just
don't know.
regular, I'm trying to make a business work and it ain't working out and I'm just unemployed. I'm not making no money regardless, right? And you basically, this little certification has had a humongous impact on your life.
Absolutely, absolutely. Because I can directly attribute it to the first job in e-commerce, which then took me over to Europe and then got me connected with the guys over in New Zealand, and it was responsible for the whole thing.
Man,
So,
you got me ready to shed some tears, man.
dude, it is what it is, and I just, it's definitely worth, you hearing it, and it's worth, people on the who are watching this to just, if they've got the time, if they've got the interest to
Mm-hmm.
and they're in a situation where they can't do it, definitely, they should give you a call. They should see what they can do because you just never know what it's going to lead to, what kind of door
Yeah.
it's going to open.
Yeah, and
So,
and and just remember, and I want you to also help people to understand that it wasn't just the CSM; it's also the things that you did as well. Because you can have that certification, and Jason, I've had people show up to me at my daughter's graduation from high school and telling me that they didn't use the dang on certification and they've had it for over a year, right? And so you have to put that thing into play. If you don't put it into play, it won't do anything for you. Am I right?
absolutely. I mean, it's kind of like high school algebra. You
Yeah.
might use it, you might not use it.
Right.
If you end up as an engineer, you certainly did.
Yeah.
But, you needed to have it to graduate. You needed to have it to open the door
Yeah.
to get into college, or you needed to have something as a prerequisite to do something else. You needed to have that way of thinking, that
Yeah.
that different mindset, that different paradigm of, hey, there's another way to do things,
Mm-hmm.
and that just opening your mind like that to a different paradigm
Yeah.
just can open
That's
the door.
great,
But
man. That's good because when I think about it, I got my certification from Ken Schwaber back in 2005, right? And I got it, and I was at State Farm, and I just was working there. I was cool, right? But I'm telling you, it completely opened the door for my transition to Capital One. There's no way I would have never went to Capital One without having a CSM. I had the PMP as well, but it was that CSM that was the reason why they wanted me to come. Then I had some experience, and it just was a domino effect. If that door didn't open, then I wouldn't be able to get to the next door, and then I wouldn't be able to get to the next door or the next door. And it sounded like that's exactly what happened for you. Now I have a different question for you. Tell me about some of the differences you felt with the cultures that you've been in since you've been on this journey, because being able to I haven't had the opportunity to go work for years overseas or be doing scrum in as many places as you know. I've kept my butt right here in America because I have kids. I may go train for a few months, but then I'm back, right? But you've actually almost, you know, just set up a life in place, right?
oh
Tell
yeah,
me how that
yeah.
feels in those different cultures.
Well, first off, it's I think every American should go spend 3 months or a year overseas because
I'd agree.
you don't appreciate the country that you live in
Mm-hmm.
As someone who considered themselves a patriot before I left, I was never happier being an American once I got back. New
Mm.
Zealand's a fine place. There are
Yeah.
a lot of great people. I've got a lot of great friends over there.
Yeah.
But it's just everything's a little different. I mean, it's
Yeah.
kind of like, when you go from one side of the country to the other here in the States, there's
Yeah.
just different attitudes, different
Mm-hmm.
different things, and it's very much the same. So I think business is done a little bit differently down in the Australia, New Zealand. There's definitely a little bit more of a you need to know people. You need to
Mm.
establish some personal relationships,
Yeah.
and you need to learn the rules of the game because
Yeah.
sometimes yes means I heard you, not I agree with you.
Yeah. Yeah.
So that's an interesting
That
thing.
is an
And
interesting paradigm because it's like I remember going over to I remember being at Capital One and really starting to work with people from India at Capital One, and then going to India and experiencing the culture myself, right? And that was a beautiful thing because there was it's one thing to humanize people like while you're here, right? So I remember I'd be having a sprint planning meeting in the middle of the night just to kind of make sure that they didn't have to be up all night, right? I do that at different places,
mm-hmm.
but to go there and to see environments, to see different things, to see people trying to do this well, and it's just with that, it's kind of like I've found that in my travels that with Scrum it's allowed me to have a humanhood. I want to say brotherhood, but I'm not going to say brotherhood on International Women's Day. So it's allowed me to have a humanhood where it's kind of like Scrum has given me this community. Do you feel that
Oh,
way?
oh, absolutely. I've met up with people over there for some meetups, Scrum meetups, Agile
Mm.
meetups that um, just allowed people to get together and chat. And so you walk into a room and there's another American expat, and you find that there's three guys from New Zealand
Yeah.
and a woman from Singapore who's living in New Zealand now, and everybody finds something to talk about that something that relates them to each other,
Yeah.
and you have some great conversations, and there's that commonality of talking about agile and talking about,
Yeah.
okay, well, what do you do for your retrospectives, and
Yeah.
learning about what works for them, and it's from time to time and place to place, people are all the same.
I
So it's
agree.
really interesting
Wow.
to hear them come and say things that you're like, yeah, I mean, we could be talking about a scrum team in Ohio, Los Angeles, or
Yeah.
Australia, and it's all the same.
And the good thing is that something like Scrum or Agile just starts the conversation. And a lot of times, all we need in our society is something of common ground to start the conversation
Mhm.
because we'll find the other ways to connect as humans, if that makes
Absolutely.
sense.
Oh, it does. It
Wow.
does.
That is one of those things where I'm just like that is amazing. So now I'm gonna ask you a different question, man.